See. Oh, okay, it's going on. So, if you've been alive for the past week, you'll know that we've had a lot of people talking about the death of former President George H.W. Bush. And I have decried a lot of this attention, whether it's positive or negative, because I'm a person who believes if the person meant something to you, you would have talked about them before. I actually did a video back in April where I talked about how he was underrated and had policies I think a lot of people in the current era would appreciate. Um, so I don't feel as if I'm doing anything any different than how I would have if he were alive. But that's something I oftentimes criticize others for, especially in sectors that just don't talk about any historical figures. They discuss Trump, they talk about Hillary occasionally, but no one that was around 20, 30 years ago, to even be focused on that era. But I was watching some of the, I guess, progressive squares or circles of people on places like Twitter and Free Speech TV. And you actually had a host. His name was Mehdi Hassan, and he's a political journalist. He's a guy who writes articles relating to politics. And he did an article where he was talking about the legacy of George H.W. And he starts talking about the Willie Horton ad, the war on drugs, all of this different stuff that I had actually forgotten to mention when I had done my reaction to his death right after I found out about it on, I think that was Friday night. And I had, let me say hello to O'Donohue. In forgetting about this stuff, it was mainly because a lot of times I always try to think of what that person did in particular versus what they continued. So, like, for example, the war on drugs, just it continues under multiple presidents, but to actually go into what that person in particular did, it's like if we had Clinton die, for example, I would mention NAFTA because that's something that he in particular was behind, or what's something else? There's another law that was Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Defense of Marriage Act. There's a lot of stuff that is specific to his time in office. And I'd mention that just because I feel that that's a particular that lets him stand apart from others. The Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which I hate with every fiber of my being because it's what caused the recession and the stock market to crash back in 2008, but whatever. So I only have one person saying anything, and it was O'Donohue, who after saying hello went to go and plow his girlfriend for the night. But when Hassan was talking about all of these different, I guess, aspects of his tenure that he didn't like, it seemed to be, even if I didn't agree with the, I don't want to say negative publicity because all of us do something that someone doesn't like, but with making it seem as though those things override his good qualities. And also, I just want to preface this by saying that when the media was cheering on McCain after he died, for example, I had not done a tribute video because I didn't think I could talk about him in a positive way. So I just said, all right, well, I'm not going to say I'm happy because this person died, but I'm not them. When they were alive, they didn't really push for anything that I was all that in favor of. He had the campaign finance reform with Feingold, and that's about it. But you get my point. I didn't want to appear to be reining in on people's parade because I think when someone is unable to not necessarily defend themselves, but my whole thing is if that person's actions did not bother you enough to talk about it more regularly or consistently when they were alive, why would you be discussing it now that they're deceased? Again, I mentioned him earlier this year and talked about his record in office because I thought it would be better to actually go into someone that I thought was better than the people that came after him. So now that he's deceased, I feel the exact same way. I actually tend to talk about people I like or that I had some decent opinion of a lot less when they die. So that is going to that's going to be a smaller amount of stuff. But I also want to say I have to apologize for the misleading title to an extent because what it seems like is that it's not just progressives doing this. It's also a lot of conspiracy theorists. Oh, Bush killed Kennedy. Yeah, everybody killed Kennedy. Johnson killed him. Nixon killed him. Ford apparently was part of the cover-up. Every president that served after Kennedy killed Kennedy. That's how ridiculous this stuff gets. They're gonna like get some old family tree of mine. They're like, oh, we have proof that Kissinger's great grandpa was also responsible. That's how bizarre these conspiracy theories are. But it seems like those kind of people who, even if they don't support that particular conspiracy, the ones that talk about the New World Order and all the other stuff are also dancing and, you know, celebrating. And I always found those kind of people to be really, I don't want to say weird, but it always felt strange when the person they're celebrating the death of hasn't done anything of any noteworthiness in decades. Because what that means is that it's not really the person's continued existence being something that is problematic for you. You know, since again, it's been decades since they did the things that you're saying that they've done. It's just you wanting to feel some kind of, I guess, grandiose closure by them being deceased. Like I remember when I saw people talking about, I hope Netanyahu and Putin die. They were saying that because they see these two office holders who are not bound by term limits and can continue to stay in office for as long as they want while rigging elections and doing things that are directly responsible for loads and loads of people's deaths. That's why when I see the kind of hatred a lot of people have for a number of American presidents, it always feels kind of weird. Like for example, I criticize Trump on here all the time. I talk about the 76% of Americans that live paycheck to paycheck that he has ignored. That he mentions how much he loves the troops. And then there's 27% of the homeless that are veterans that his base will denounce as people that were lazy and didn't do anything. But even in having those grievances with groups that he ignores, kind of like how this guy is saying that Bush ignored gays back in the 90s, it would not make me want him to die. Because I believe Pence, if he were to take office from that, in that scenario, would do the exact same thing, as well as any other Republican, which is what is so amazing about the that last primary when you start thinking of all the policies that were continued from one person to another. So basically, there was this idea back during and it seems like a foreign thing at this point, during the 2016 Republican primary, that Trump was different from the others, and he was going to be this mixture of some liberalism with a little bit of conservatism, and just kind of this bombastic character. You never know what he's going to do. And that turned out to be fraudulent. But it turned out to be fraudulent in a way that a lot of people who voted for him did not want, which was a complete continuation of regular establishment Republican ideas. And this is stuff, that we can go down the list on, but this isn't about him necessarily. It's me saying that in him doing a lot of things I don't like and a lot of things I think are dangerous, even if he were to, have something happen to him, it wouldn't make me happy, because it would just be someone else doing that if it weren't him. Unfortunately, due to our two-party system where you only can allow two ideologies to, frequent the White House at one point or another. And so when I see the progressives on Twitter and all these other places talking about, Bush said this, Bush did that, he was responsible for this, I'm like, you guys were completely ignoring him all the way up until these last few days. What changed? And just to see the joy that some people have, like, you would think he was a dictator, which is what they call Trump now. And I guess when you start going into a lot of the criticisms that Republicans get just throughout history for like the last 30 years, that's when you start realizing all the fanfare about Trump isn't really that real. Like, for example, people lost their minds over his response to the Unite the Right rally. But now they're going around saying that, playing this one ad, this, Willie Horton ad was the equivalent to doing that, which was 20 years ago. So understand, they can't even criticize him and keep their narrative going. A lot of people have this narrative that Trump is now this big change and shift in terms of the quality of the people in the White House, while they're demeaning one of the guys that was there 20 years before for doing the exact same thing. Not specifically, but they're implying that those were the same things. So I just think it's sad, but also it's really telling of how people can't accept that none of these politicians are perfect. And I'm not. I guess what I'm trying to say there is that I can recognize problems and issues I've had with probably every president, but if I held them to the standard with which I would consider someone to be great or top notch, I wouldn't like any of them. They bring up him nominating Clarence Thomas, for example, as though he's directly responsible for every single thing that Thomas has decided. And that's when people just start thinking the president is the emperor. That the senators who voted for Thomas are not more responsible for that than him. But whatever. Um, they just have this thing where they want to associate this one person with every problem that we have now. And it always comes off as disingenuous. Like when I read Hassan's article, it didn't seem like it was from an honest actor in the sense that while he might have had these grievances, with Bush beforehand, why did it take his death for you to come out and go, oh, man, I hated this part of his tenure. I hated that part of his tenure. He did this awful thing here. Why do you have to die for you to say that? I talk negatively about Bush, Obama, because I don't care if you're here or not. If I have a problem with you in office, I'll mention it. It won't take you dying and me thinking I can get in the spotlight by writing a hit piece to cause me to start speaking that way. But I do think this is telling of what we can expect in the upcoming years, because a lot of people would still agree to the idea that Bush was more moderate than his son, and certainly more than Trump. So that means when those two die, which again hopefully isn't for decades or whatever, because I just told you I'm not in favor of wishing for someone's demise. But when those two die, they're going to have these same liberals who, decades into the future will ignore them, act like it didn't exist, never talk about them, all of a sudden go, yay, this person is deceased. I'm so happy. Let me talk about how horrible they were and how what they did was so evil, which is why I completely ignored it up until they died. That's what they do. They just dance on someone's grave. Like that stuff is just so weird to me. I don't understand it for the reasons I just laid out here. What's funny, Emilton, the part with the throwing your hands up. I mean, think about it. Like let's pretend I died, and you have a problem with my political views. Well, I have news for you. If I go, you're still going to have people who either share a similar ideology or there's always going to be someone else that thinks one particular way that I think. So that those views and that idea or those ideas or those proposals are not going to evaporate because one person is deceased. Sorry, that's just how the way it works. But yeah, if that was the case, that would mean my views are still here, even if I'm not. So that can't be it. If it's over the woman thing, which is another thing I'm known for, other people have made content on that too. So really, I am not the end all be all for anything that I'd like to do or I'm in favor of or any of it. But for some reason, you would still have people going, "Yay, this person is dead! Woohoo! My life is so much better, even though they did nothing to me." My God, it is insane. Like I said, I had a bunch of problems with McCain, um, probably more than Trump because of all the countries he wanted to go to. But I hated the fact that he died, that he had cancer. I think a lot of times people, when they get into these disagreements over public policy or something else, there's this idea that we forget each other as human. We forget others are human. That they have, let's say, relatives that are disappointed that what happened to them happened, which is I think something most people, when they take off this hate boner that they have for whoever they're talking about, would be able to figure out and understand. It's just a really weird part of human psychology where they don't they can't really put, like, it's funny because they criticize Bush and a lot of other Republicans for not being able to put themselves in the shoes of people that are not like them through enacting, refusing to enact policies that are uh, geared toward helping those people. And then they sit there and refuse to put themselves in the shoes of the relatives that are grieving over their loved one being deceased by dancing on that loved one's grave because they dislike their tenure in public office. I just think it's really kind of comical. I just realized that there's like this really big hypocritical part of the whole thing. We dislike you because you can't understand how others feel. Now we're going to pretend to not be able to understand how your family members might feel about us being happy that you're now deceased by dancing on your grave. We're going woohoo, yay! They like that. And again, these are people who more often than not I would agree with on policy substance, but I don't want to be part of that crowd that just sits there and celebrates someone's death. And I guess I could kind of get it if there was some kind of reward, like, oh, if this former president dies, you get $3,000. Okay, yeah, then it makes sense. But what now has changed with their lives? Are there conspiracy theories now going to be over? Are there vendettas against people they've never met before going to shift? What changed? One person is now dead. What about your life is different? They don't ask themselves that. That's why they have that mentality. They just it's just people who treat anything as a victory at this point. The victory should be getting that person out of office to where they can't implement the policies that you call yourself being a critic of. And he was already out of office, so you would say mission accomplished, right? Except the mass incarceration from the war on drugs continued under Clinton. So you didn't really get your change. So maybe instead of whining about one public official that you disagreed with, you should have been whining about the next public official from the opposing political party continuing the same policy. Because I'm telling you, all of the bad stuff you're hearing about Bush today and tomorrow and maybe next week, although I don't think it'll last that long, is all going to be reflected in the comments that are made about the deaths of pretty much every other living president except for Carter, who I also had complimented to the highest degree a couple months back. Because I believe in treating people good while they're here. But these are all going to be similar complaints that they make, and the overarching thing they're never going to be able to figure out is that you can be happy this one president died or this one politician is dead, but as long as there are people with that ideology still able to get in office that you ignore because they're not president yet, same thing's going to happen again. And again, it's that narrow-minded nature that doesn't let them think critically about this stuff. They just kind of say, well, this one person is deceased, so mission accomplished. What, were you trying to assassinate him? So what are you talking about? So if anyone has anything else to add, let me know. If not, we can close this out. I'm just getting sick of people that I agree with on a lot of these issues being so celebratory now that someone they didn't agree with is deceased. I don't think I agree with anything Trump has done in the White House other than get rid of NAFTA. And, that's not going to make me happy that when he dies or hope that it comes quicker. Like, that's so weird to me because I've seen these people when they get mad at any of these presidents for all these different, wars that kill loads of people. They call them sociopaths. They say they don't have any ability to empathize. And then they're portraying themselves as sociopaths by reacting with glee that this person who hasn't been able to, if they're a former president, to influence major policy in decades is deceased. Like that just makes their day. This is the best year of their life. Now that this person is dead. And again, I just explained how it's contradictory because nothing has changed. All their conspiracies are still here. All the things that person did have not been erased. Um, you know, they're all soft. What do you mean? Number 25. I'm a little confused. Are you saying all the people who are happy that he died are soft or what? Oh yeah, well, that should show you the like when I think of stuff that makes me happy, it's usually completing some project or I don't know, earning something. When someone dies, I don't exactly that doesn't really give me as Chris Matthews said, a thrill up my leg or anything. So that's why it's really weird when you get people that are that way. Because you know that if it were their relative, they wouldn't want someone sitting there celebrating it. Now, to be fair, most of us will never have someone we're related to that was president or a senator or governor, but it still shows you their lack of ability to figure out. Wait a second, I don't like this person because of what they did in office. Maybe I should make sure that what that person did in office is discontinued via electing people that don't do that same thing. So maybe I should worry a lot less about that one particular person and the actual office and the people that are seeking the office. Yeah, well, I mentioned this earlier, 25, but they don't have that kind of mindset. And they're still not, they don't have the foresight to know, wait a second, this guy is considered a lot less worse than his son and Trump, who we call ourselves hating. So, while we're, indifferent to this happening to him, all the stuff that we hated has just been magnified, basically. Uh, yeah, it seems like all they can do is just sit there and repeat whatever somebody else is repeating. Like I said, I've had many people who are progressive that try to tell me who to like and who not to like, and it just doesn't work. Now, me liking someone doesn't translate to me voting for them. Just like I like Nixon, for the Environmental Protection Agency. The treaty was that I forgot the one that George W. got rid of that kept us out of a nuclear race for like 30 years. You know which one I'm talking. You can probably look it up and find out which one it is. But those are things that he did in particular that I really liked. Um, and that doesn't mean I'd vote for him back, especially considering who he ran against, Humphrey and McGovern. But the point is, someone telling me to not like a person or that this person is evil or this person was terrible isn't going to change my mind about that person. It just seems like now we've moved away from trying to get people to think critically about stuff to just whatever this person on TV or this person that you know personally is telling you, just believe that. I mean, they are. I had to get off of certain parts of Twitter. They were really sitting there just going, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Like, what? Really? Wow. My God. And again, I've said this before, and I will repeat: if someone was so bad and they were so terrible, why did it take them dying for you to now start talking about them? I talk about the bad things that George W. did, with him still being alive, because they still have a daily influence on the lives of people years after they were done. His death won't make me feel any differently about it. And again, I've said if he dies, they won't. It doesn't erase what he did. So what? Why would I sit there and go, "Oh my God, George W. is gone"? uh, Oh, don't even get me started on Me Too stuff with the allegations of groping or whatever. Now, I want you to think about this. Here's a guy who is famous for over 50 years, and the entire time he's in office, which is about maybe 30 years, he never has anyone accuse him of sexual assault, anything. So then 20 years later, at the height of a bunch of women coming forward with allegations that were from decades ago and all this other time, you have some that say, "Oh man, during his tenure out of office, when he was in a wheelchair, he touched me on the butt." I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, you're telling me this 90-year-old man, and this is how old he was with some of the allegations, was able that is in a wheelchair, was able to use, I guess, the force to like grab you and make his hand go. What? You shouldn't for being, because what if that person changes your mind on one issue? Yeah, well, the thing is with them is that they don't realize the only reason they don't like these people is because they don't do everything they want. Um, yeah, it had to be the Force 25. He was in a wheelchair, and this woman was perfectly able to run, to walk, to hop, and she's telling me I'm supposed to believe that this man in a wheelchair was able to just overpower you. Get out of here. Now, there were some who came forward later on and said, oh, yeah, 20 years ago in this one picture. But again, why didn't you say anything? Remember, the whole thing is it's men in positions of power. They're going to do something to us. But he was out of office the whole time, from what I remember of all in all the allegations. So that's why I didn't believe that. And then, people got mad. How dare you not believe them? I don't. I believe the ones for I only started to believe the ones for Kavanaugh when he refused to do the investigation into what Christine Blasey Ford was saying, and even then I still was skeptical over someone waiting 30 years to. It's finicky, but I came over more to her side after hearing her testimony, and then also him refusing to do another, because I was like, wait a second. You let them do 6 investigations without the allegations, and now when they want to investigate the allegations, well, I personally don't think it's just do it, because I'm going from the perspective, if I was accused, wouldn't I want someone to clear my name? Unless I did it. So look, that could have happened. I don't know. I don't believe. Oh yeah, I don't believe that either. It's just, again, a bunch of hearsay and the patriarchy and all that. Marco says shouldn't hate someone for being Republican. Oh, so as I was trying to answer for you, Marco, earlier, was that a lot of people who are criticizing Bush now, I think, are going to regret those criticisms in time, because it's going to basically be ramped up with all of the other Republican presidents. Like when you look at his record compared to other quote unquote conservatives, it's a lot more polarizing. Just like they talk about, oh, he vetoed the Civil Rights Act. Like, yeah, but he had the American with Disabilities Act. When was the last time you ever saw any of these presidents actually sit there and go, there's a really serious issue here. Let's actually do something about it. Let's not say thoughts and prayers. He banned assault rifles, which no Republican president is ever going to do again. He bit back his promise to raise taxes after having his advisors say, hey, look, man, this will screw stuff up, which was a principled thing to do because it may have cost him the election. Although I still think if Perot didn't get in that race and split the vote, there would have been a higher chance for him. Whatever. Bottom line is that there were things about him that I cannot say the same for his son and Trump and probably other future Republican presidents, and that people who are criticizing him now are going to say, man, that was someone that actually had a record that wasn't entirely awful, unlike the people that came after, that we call ourselves, them all being identical when they're really not. So they'll live and learn. People will figure it out on their own. I don't see the joy in being happy that someone that has no power over you and had no influence in your life is deceased. I would think that would make you go, okay, well, I didn't talk about them before, so maybe we should just not even act like they exist, as we did prior. I give the example of Billy Graham for example, because when he was alive, I didn't talk about him. So why would I talk about him now that he's deceased? Especially when all of these older figures, they seem to die after years of not doing anything of any significance. So again, he was out of office for over 20 years. He actually had the 4th longest tenure he lived the 4th longest amount of time out of office of any president. And again, no one can sit here and tell me what he did after he left office that was so evil and that had warranted their scorn and their hatred for this man, or really even what he did before being president. It's all except for the JFK assassination, because all the presidents were involved in that. So it's really just people looking at this 4-year period and saying that we didn't like this one thing, that thing. So I hate you. I hope you die, or I'm going to be glad when you die. Now that you're dead, I'm going he. Versus, just admitting that these people are all going to do something that we think is stupid and accepting that that's the way it is. When you have someone that is in control of loads and loads of policies, they can't always satisfy your expectations. So I think celebrating someone's death is stupid. I've said that multiple times in this stream. Uh, and they're gonna keep doing it, and I'm gonna keep not doing it. I don't want to be on the same team with people that dance on other people's graves, especially someone that they don't personally know. So thank you.